8 videos. That's all I posted in 2025. Just 8. And you know what? Honestly, I'm not really here to apologize for it. Because those 8 videos taught me more about myself and about sustainable content creation than the previous 2 years combined. So let's talk about what really happened in 2025. The good, the bad, and the lessons I learned when I stopped trying to keep up with everyone else's reading and upload schedules. And then we'll talk about 2026 and why it's definitely going to be different. This is going to be honest, a little vulnerable, and hopefully helpful if you've ever felt like you're failing at consistency too. Let's get into it. Before I get into the challenges and what I learned, let's start with the good stuff, because there was a lot of good in 2025, even if my upload count didn't exactly reflect it. First off, I read 34 books in 2025, which is honestly one of my better reading years, especially in terms of quality. I only DNF'd one book this entire year, and that was Slow Gods by Claire North. It just wasn't connecting with me at that particular moment for various reasons, which was disappointing because I loved the other book from Claire North that I've read. But almost all the other books I read this year were 4 or 5-star reads for me, which is awesome. So even though I wasn't showing up consistently on YouTube, I was absolutely showing up for books. I was reading pretty widely, a bunch of lit fic and sci-fi, more fantasy this year than ever before, and a handful of nonfiction reads as well. I was taking my time with books, really sitting with them instead of rushing through to hit some arbitrary reading goal, and that felt really good. And all this taught me something very important, that my relationship with reading was never the problem. It was the pressure I was putting on myself to constantly create content about what I was reading. That was the thing wearing me down. The other huge win for me in 2025 was teaching. I finished the 2024-2025 school year strong. My science class got the best scores on their state exam in the history of the school. As a teacher, that was incredibly vindicating. Teaching is hard. You pour so much energy into lesson planning and differentiation and classroom management and building relationships with these kids. And sometimes you wonder if it's actually making a difference at all. But seeing those test scores, I know test scores aren't everything, but knowing that my students not only understood the material, but could apply it and demonstrate a degree of mastery, that was incredibly gratifying. And this school year, the group of kids I have right now is shaping up to perform even better. They're curious, they're engaged, they're asking awesome questions. We're having productive Socratic discussions almost daily. The classroom culture we've built this year is a true joy. So teaching has been taking up a lot of my mental and emotional energy, but in the best possible way. And then we also added Watson to our family in 2025. He was this little fluffy ball of chaos back in May when I introduced him to you all. And honestly, he's still pretty chaotic now, but my goodness, what a handsome fella he is growing up to be. Watsy has been a handful, But he's also brought so much joy and energy into our home. He's starting to really feel like part of the family now. Less like the new puppy and more like our big boy. So here's what I realized. 2025 wasn't a failure. It was just a year where my energy and focus needed to be elsewhere. I was succeeding in other areas of my life, reading more intentionally, teaching more effectively, being more present for my family. And that meant something had to give. And what gave was the upload schedule. And ultimately, I'm okay with that. Because the 8 videos I did make, I was genuinely proud of. They weren't rushed, they weren't forced. They came from a place of genuine excitement about reading and not obligation to feed the almighty algorithm. So that's the good. I read a lot, I taught well, I had some quality family time, and I created content that felt meaningful even though it was few and far between. But now it's time to talk about the messier stuff, because there was definitely a whole lot of that too. "2025 was also really hard. And I think it's important to talk about that too, because on social media, we really only show the highlight reel, and that's just not the full picture. In January, I lost my grandmother. I'd lost my grandfather a few years ago, and once he was gone, Grandma developed some nasty dementia. You know, watching someone you love slowly lose themselves like that is its own kind of grief. You're mourning them while they're still physically present, and then you gotta mourn them all over again when they are finally gone. They were both very important people in my life, and grief is one of those things that doesn't follow a schedule or a timeline. It sits with you. Some days you're okay, and then a while later, most days you're okay, and then sometimes it just hits you all over again. Losing her at the start of the year set a somewhat somber tone for 2025, made everything else feel a little heavier, and it definitely affected my motivation for creating content. Then over the summer, we lost our elder cats, Pierce and Kibi. They were part of our little family for so long, and losing them, especially so close together, it was literally within a few days of each other. It was really heartbreaking. Pet loss is a kind of grief that's really underestimated, I think. They're not just pets. They're members of the family. And saying goodbye to them was incredibly difficult. My wife and I also went through a devastating personal loss this year, and I'm not really ready to talk about the details publicly. It's something I'm only sharing with my closest friends right now, but I wanted to acknowledge it here because it was a significant part of why I disappeared for a while there in 2025. Some things are just too raw and private to share with the internet. And then there's the house rehab project. We've been working on this for what feels like ages, and it just keeps hitting snag after snag. Every time we think we are making progress, something else pops up. It's starting to feel almost Sisyphean at this point. It's exhausting financially, emotionally, mentally, physically. And it's one of those ongoing stressors that just drains your energy in the background of everything else. So when you add all that up, grief, loss, disappointment, ongoing stress, It's no wonder I only posted 8 videos. I was busy surviving, and YouTube just couldn't be the priority. My mental health, my relationships, my career, those all had to come first. And I don't regret that. I did what I needed to do to get through a really difficult year. But it also taught me something important about sustainable content creation, which brings me to what I learned. So after a year like that, full of a few successes and a mountain of struggles, I learned some really important lessons about content creation and consistency, and what it actually means to show up for your audience. Here's the big one. I used to think consistency meant posting on a rigid schedule. Every week, same day, same time. And when I couldn't maintain that, I felt like I was failing. But what I learned in 2025 is that consistency doesn't have to mean constant. Consistency can mean showing up when you have something meaningful to say. It can mean creating content that's authentic and thoughtful, even if it's less frequent. It can mean maintaining a relationship with your audience based on quality and genuine connection and not just feeding the algorithm. The 8 videos I posted in 2025 were consistent with my values. They were consistent with what I wanted to share about books. They just weren't consistent with an arbitrary upload schedule. And I think that's okay. I also learned that the algorithm isn't everything. Yeah, it matters if you want your channel to grow. But I think what matters more is creating content that you are actually proud of. Creating content that reflects your genuine interests and passions and not just what you think will perform well. Because here's the thing, burnout is real. If you are constantly chasing algorithmic favor at the expense of your mental health and your creativity and your joy in the thing you're creating content about, you're gonna burn out. I've seen it happen to other creators, and I've felt myself heading in that direction. So in 2026, I'm prioritizing sustainability over growth. I stalled out at about 6,200 subscribers around 6 months ago. If the channel starts growing again, great, but not at the cost of my well-being or my love of reading. And here's maybe the most important lesson. It's okay to prioritize other parts of your life over content creation. Teaching is my career, my relationships, my family, my mental health. Those are the foundations of my life. YouTube is something I do because I love it, but it can't come at the expense of those foundational things. In 2025, I learned to give myself permission to step back when I needed to. And that's not failure. That's wisdom, I think. At the very least, it's self-awareness. It's understanding that you can't pour anything from an empty cup. Finally, I learned that quality really does matter more than quantity. I'd rather make 8 videos I'm genuinely proud of than 50 that feel rushed or forced or inauthentic or like they're trolling for views. And I think most of us can tell the difference as a viewer as well. You can tell when someone's creating from a place of passion versus obligation. So that's what I'm taking into 2026. These lessons about sustainability and authenticity and what really matters in content creation. which brings me to my plans for this year. Okay, so let's talk about 2026. What am I actually planning to do with this channel? What am I reading? What can you expect from me? Well, I'm not promising a rigid upload schedule. I'm not saying every Wednesday or once a week or anything like that. What I am promising is that when I show up, it'll be because I have something I genuinely want to share with you. I'm aiming for more than 8 videos. Let's set the bar a little higher than last year. But I'm not going to sacrifice quality or my mental health to hit some arbitrary number. I'm focusing on creating content that feels meaningful and authentic and worth your time. My goal this year is 24 videos, roughly 2 per month. That feels sustainable while still challenging me to show up more consistently than I did in 2025. And if I end up posting more than that, great, but 24 is the baseline goal that I am setting for myself. Now let's talk about what I'm actually going to be reading this year, because I have some fairly ambitious plans and I am really excited about them. I'm currently on what I'm calling a classical tour. I just finished reading the Iliad, and now I'm moving on to the Odyssey, then the Aeneid, followed by Ovid's Metamorphoses, and finally, the Divine Comedy. These are books I have taken in before in some abridged form or another, but never in their original epic forms, and I've always wanted to read them properly. And 2026 is the year I'm doing it. I want to take my time with these. I want to understand the context, the historical significance, and how they relate to each other. I'm not just trying to check books off a list. They are foundations of Western literature, and I want to really engage with them. And yes, I will definitely be sharing my journey through these classics with you, exploring why these texts have endured and what they mean in a contemporary context and what I'm personally getting out of reading them now. And here's something else I'm particularly excited about. I'm planning to read 4 major Shakespeare works this year, cover to cover, using these Arden Shakespeare editions. These are not quick reads. I am diving into the critical essays and the annotations and the scholarly context. I will be kicking things off with the Comedy of Errors, then King Lear, then Macbeth, and finally, Hamlet. I'm really looking forward to sharing insights from these readings with you, especially since I teach literature and love exploring how Shakespeare's themes and language still resonate today. I teach an advanced reading group at the school. I call them my Shakespeare kids. And we read out of Charles and Mary Lamb's Tales from Shakespeare. And to see these kids, 5th graders, really connect with and get excited about Shakespeare just fills my heart. Shout out to my Shakespeare kids. I'm also planning to continue my Discworld adventure by reading the next 5 books in the series in publication order. Last year, I wanted to read the first 10 books, but I only got through the first 5. But with them, I fell in love with Pratchett's wit and wisdom, and I can't wait to explore more of the incredible, wacky world and meet more of these unforgettable characters. Last year, I also fell in love with Emily St. John Mandel's authorial voice, having read Station 11, The Glass Hotel, and Sea of Tranquility. And this year, I want to read more from her, specifically her first 3 novels, Last Night in Montreal, The Singer's Gun, and the Lola Quartet. One of my videos this year will almost certainly be a deep dive into the Mandel-verse, so keep your eyes peeled for that. And then I also have aspirations to tackle some other assorted works, some from Pynchon, some from Le Carré, and some from the indie Slovenian publisher Corona Samizdat. The editor-in-chief of Corona Samizdat, Rick Harsh, unfortunately suffered some pretty serious health problems toward the tail end of 2025. And to honor him, I think I'm going to start his Driftless trilogy here pretty soon. I look forward to that and wish him the best. Ultimately, we'll see how much I can actually get through here this year. But I have set a Goodreads goal of 40 books. Technically arbitrary, but somewhat aspirational, and certainly not unreasonable by any means. All of this, the classics, the contemporary fiction, the ambitious literary projects, I want to share it all with you. Not just reviews, but the experience of reading through different seasons of life. And speaking of seasons of life, I do have some pretty exciting news to share. In May, my wife and I will be welcoming our first child into the world. A baby girl. We are thrilled, terrified, but thrilled. And this is obviously going to change everything. My reading life, my content creation, my priorities in general. And I'm excited to share this journey with you too, including the books that I'm reading to prepare for fatherhood and the ways my perspective shifts. So 2026 is going to be a year of transformation in a lot of ways, and I'm glad you're here for it. So that's where I'm at. 2025 was a year of challenges and lessons, a year where I learned that consistency doesn't mean constant, that the algorithm isn't everything, and that it's okay to prioritize the things that matter most. I posted 8 videos, and while that's fewer than I hoped for, each one came from a genuine place. Each one reflected something I actually wanted to share with you about books and reading. 2026 is going to be wild. And I'm going to share that journey with you. Not according to some rigid schedule, but when I have something meaningful to say. When I've read something that moved me or challenged me or taught me something worth sharing. If that sounds like the kind of content you want to see, I'd love for you to stick around. Subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell if you want to be notified when I post, because it's clearly not going to be on a perfectly predictable schedule. Leave a comment letting me know what you are reading in 2026, what your bookish goals are, and if you have any thoughts or insight on navigating content creation while prioritizing mental health and the other important parts of your life. I read every comment, and I genuinely love hearing from you. Thank you so much for being here, for listening to me yap, for your patience with my inconsistent upload schedule, and for caring about reading as much as I do. Here's to a year full of meaningful reading, authentic content, and whatever adventures 2026 has in store. I wish you all the best. Take care.